Rail across Europe starts with an Emirates flight into Glasgow, where we transfer to Edinburgh for a total of 3 nights. We then board our first trains via Inverness to Carlisle of Lochaush and transfer via the Isle of Skye to Mallaig. The next day we return to Edinburgh via Inverness and Glasgow, and we will pass Loch Lomond and Ben Nevis. A 90-minute train ride from Edinburgh brings us to Carlisle, where we board the wonderful settled Carlisle Line. On our way to York, we hop onto the 5-mile branch line of the Keithley and Worth Valley Heritage Railway, one of the most celebrated in the UK. After a 2-night stay in York, we head for Aberystwyth in Wales, cutting through the Shropshire countryside. After 2 nights here, we travel to London via Swansea on the Heart of Wales line. And then God's wonderful railway will take us into London for the final UK leg.
50, 40, 30.
Arriving at Glasgow, we transfer to the Scottish capital, Edinburgh, and are home for the next 3 nights, the Balmoral Hotel. Icon image of Edinburgh, modern design and classic architecture in the heart of the city. Often described as the Athens of the North, this is one of Europe's most beautiful cities. Its architecture reflects its historical importance as Scotland's capital. During our time in Edinburgh, we take a 90-minute cruise beneath the spectacular 3 bridges that cross the Firth of Forth, the rail bridge being the real highlight. A staggeringly complex design which opened up in 1890, this is an amazing feat of Victorian engineering. Our hotel forms the northern edge of Edinburgh's Waverley Station. And today, on our way to the Isle of Skye, we take 2 trains. The first will cross the engineering masterpiece. And when we arrive at Inverness, we board the train for Carlisle of Lochaush. The Carlisle Line from Inverness was finally opened at enormous cost in 1897. It has 29 bridges that were cut through 31 sections of solid rock. At the time, it cost £20,000 per mile. After 2 hours and 40 minutes, our train pulls into Carlisle of Lochaush station, and we board our bus for the journey across the bridge to the Isle of Skye and on to Mallaig. The next morning, we leave Mallaig on Scotland's most famous railway, the West Highland Line. Soon we pass one of 3 iconic landmarks, the Glen Finnan Viaduct. If it looks familiar, then it's because of Hogwarts Express in the Harry Potter films. In fact, the West Highland Railway itself has been immortalised by Harry Potter. An hour later we pull into Fort William, where we have splendid views of Ben Nevis. At 1,345 metres, it is Britain's highest mountain. The line now tumbles over the remote Rannoch Moor. 2 hours later, we reach the largest lake in Great Britain, the fabled Loch Lomond. After changing trains in Glasgow, we pull into Edinburgh for 1 night. The next morning, we leave Scotland for York via the glorious settled Carlisle Line. This is arguably England's most scenic, as it crosses the Yorkshire Dales and the Pennines.
employed 3,000 navvies to build this mighty road. And across the fells to Appleby, that old steam engine roll, and it's up in the morning.
It was constructed in 1870. The line features 14 tunnels and 22 viaducts, the most famous of which is the Ridle Head Viaduct.
It's 72 miles from Settle to Carlisle, across the roughest country, boys, in the British Isles. They said it would take 4 years, but it took them near 7.
This masterpiece of Victorian engineering consists of 1.5 million bricks and 24 arches which support 400 metres of track.
Old Fasty hammers Latin, lay another rail.
When we arrive at Settle, we change trains to the small town of Keithley, where we jump aboard the Keithley and Worth Valley Railway. This unique 5-mile branch line runs through the beautiful Bronte countryside of West Yorkshire. The line has been used for many TV shows and films, but its great claim to fame comes from the 1970s film The Railway Children. By mid-afternoon, we reach York, and our relaxing 2-night stay is spent at the historic Principal York Hotel, right in the heart of the city and backing onto the railway station itself. York was built in the first millennium and has been home to the Romans, Saxons and Vikings. It resembles something straight out of a Charles Dickens novel, and every aspect of York's modern life is inextricably linked with the past. It is one of the most beautifully preserved medieval cities in Europe. Today we leave England to cross into Wales, to the coastal town of Aberystwyth. One of the trains we use today is the Welshpool and Landfare Light Railway. It is one of Wales' many heritage narrow gauge lines. By afternoon, we arrive into Aberystwyth. Aberystwyth, where the architecture reflects the growth of the town since the Middle Ages. Locally known as Aber, this is a university town where Welsh is spoken everywhere. Apart from the ruined castle, the mile-long Victorian promenade boasts a pier that dates back to 1864. And the best vantage point of the town is from the end of the North Beach at Constitution Hill. On one of our days here, we take a wonderful journey by steam train through the timeless Ridle Valley. This railway line has been operating since 1902, and the train twists and turns through woodlands, meadows, and clings to the rugged mountains. And the narrow track gauge allows the railway to follow the contours of the terrain. The next morning, we leave Aberystwyth for London, and by mid-afternoon, we arrive at London's Euston Station. From here, it's a short walk to St Pancras Renaissance Hotel, where we will spend the next 3 nights. The Renaissance is London's great Gothic masterpiece. Reopened only in 2011, this hotel forms part of St Pancras Station itself. For the next stage of the journey, we leave London with the Eurostar to Paris, where we stay for 3 nights. We then board the train via Geneva for Zermatt in Switzerland. After 2 nights in the shadow of the Matterhorn, we jump aboard the amazing Glacier Express to St Moritz. This will be our 2-night base for another great train ride, the Red Fairy Tale on Wheels, the Panini Express. Our tour then takes us to the Austrian capital, Vienna, for a 3-night stay. The last leg of the journey brings us to an almost unknown jewel in East Germany, Gornograt, in the shadows of the Harz Mountains. Our 3 nights here allow us time to take the fantastic steam train to the summit of Mount Brocken and also relax in this beautiful medieval Gothic town before we fly back to Australia. Stepping out of the Renaissance Hotel lobby is almost setting foot onto the Eurostar. With speeds of up to 300 kilometers an hour, the Eurostar reaches Paris in 2 hours and 20 minutes. The train pulls into Gare station, which is a few minutes from Montmartre, the most charming neighbourhood in Paris.
Sous le ciel de Paris s'envole une chanson.
Our 3 nights are spent here at the Relais Montmartre, cosy and central to everywhere.
Sous le ciel de Paris marchent des amoureux. Leur bonheur se construit.
Montmartre has been home to artists for centuries, and the art vibe is ubiquitous.
Bercy, un philosophe assis, de musiciens.
Artists like Monet, Renoir, Cézanne and Picasso lived and worked in this suburb. During our time in Paris, we see all the sights. The Sacré-Cœur, one of the city's iconic landmarks, is just a few minutes walk from our hotel.
Près de Notre-Dame, parfois couvent drame. Oui, mais à Paname.
It's early morning at Gare de Lyon and the start of our journey from Paris to Zermatt in Switzerland. We reach Geneva by lunchtime, and this is where we change trains for the beautiful 3.5-hour ride into Zermatt. The train is the best way to arrive in Zermatt, as no cars are allowed in the village, and the station is in the centre, a few minutes walk from our hotel. An all-year-round resort, Zermatt is surrounded by 29 mountains, including the 4,500-metre peak of the Matterhorn. It is the most visited place in Switzerland. And the Alps combine to keep clouds at bay, and oddly, it is the sunniest place in the country. During our 2 nights in the Alps, we hop onto the Gornograt Railway, an ingenious rack line that opened in 1898. This 9.3-kilometre track connects Zermatt at 1,600 metres to Gornograt summit at 3,000 metres. From the peak, and on a clear day, there are unparalleled views of the Matterhorn. This morning we leave Zermatt on one of the world's greatest railways, the Glacier Express. The 290-kilometre journey to St Moritz will take us 8 hours. The slowest express in the world has an average speed of 24 kilometers an hour. But who cares? After a momentous day, the Glacier Express pulls into St. Moritz at 5:38 in the afternoon, and from the station, it's a short walk to our hotel. Our base for 2 nights in St. Moritz is the unique Hotel Eden, and for 2 reasons. The first, it's a lovely, comfy boutique property, and the second, it has a unique model train collection. The beautiful glacial lake of St. Moritz is a breathtaking backdrop to the town of 5,000 people. 1,800 meters above sea level, St. Moritz is the birthplace of winter tourism. It's hosted the Winter Olympics twice, 1928 and 1948. This morning we embark on an extraordinary day trip on the Bernina Express from St. Moritz to Tirano in Italy. Leaving St. Moritz, the red fairy tale on wheels will take us 2.5 hours each way. Just over an hour after leaving St. Moritz, we reached the halfway point to Tirano. Built in 1902, the Landfare viaduct is 136 meters in length. It is 65 meters high. It is an astonishing landmark. The highest point of the ride is the Bernina Pass at 2,300 meters. And when the train crosses into Italy, it will enter the dizzying Brusio spiral viaduct. We are now just 20 minutes from Tirano. When we reach Tirano, we have lunch and return on the Bernina to St. Moritz. The next morning, we leave St. Moritz for Austria, arriving in Vienna by early evening for a 3-night stay. Our 3 nights in Vienna allow us to see all of the great sights of this Habsburg jewel. Vienna Opera House, one of the finest in the world. The visual feast of St. Stephen's Cathedral with its intricate mosaic roof tiles. The Hofburg Palace, winter residence of the Habsburg dynasty. This is one of the biggest palace complexes in the world, and its beautiful Welsh garden where Strauss would often premiere his new waltzes. Just southwest of the centre is the Schönbrunn Palace, summer residence of the Habsburgs, and one of Europe's most impressive Baroque ensembles. And of course, Vienna at night is nothing short of breathtaking. It's early morning, and we leave from Vienna's main station for a stunning little town on the northern slopes of the Harz Mountains in what was East Germany. Wernigerode's castle towers majestically above a medieval town that has been lavishly restored. Hidden behind the Iron Curtain for a generation, Wernigerode was beautiful even in its dilapidation. After German reunification in 1990, the finest craftsmen in the country were assembled to restore the town to its former beauty. Yet still few Westerners know of this extraordinary Harz Mountain gem. Our 3 nights in Wernigerode are spent at Gotthischer's house, right in the centre of Market Square. The town is delightfully car-free, and the atmosphere conjures up blacksmiths, carpenters, bakers, poets working in front of the half-timbered houses. On one of our days in Wernigerode, we take an historic narrow-gauge steam train to the top of Mount Brocken. During the Cold War, this peak was used as an espionage station that could pick up radio transmissions as far as Dublin. The train still operated during this period, carrying troops and military hardware to the summit. Today it carries only travellers and rail enthusiasts in carriages that were lovingly restored in 1992. The line snakes its way through meadows and forests, which give way to a plateau as the train reaches the 1,142 metre summit, the highest peak in northern Germany. The final leg of the trip is a train to Frankfurt, where we fly to Australia. Rail across Europe is a fascinating adventure that not only takes in some of the greatest train journeys in the world, but also explores Europe in that unique travel director's style.